Okay, so the last couple slides here, I'm sorry I couldn't fit it onto the last one, but this is on how to do the examination using the otoscope. And this picture kind of tells you everything that you need to think about. When you look at this picture, you will see that the person that is doing the examination is holding the otoscope upside down. So if this were the handle, I would hold it up against the person's head so that the tip can go in the ear, and yet I can still balance holding that up against their head. You will see when you go out into practice, or even when you go and see your own provider, where they'll have that handle like this and holding it up against the ear like this and in there. And there really is no right way or wrong way. A lot of it has to do with experience. Quite honestly, I hold it upside down. I don't hold it up against the head like that. When I first started, I did, because I wasn't as confident in my ability to hold that nice and steady so that I didn't poke that into the ear too hard. So when you're practicing in lab this week, we want to see you kind of holding it upside down like that and balancing your hand against the person's head. It can be kind of difficult, a little bit of a challenge, but eventually you'll get the hang of it. Again, this is the way your book talks about doing it, and that's why we want to teach it to you this way. But you may see it the other way. Now also you will see that the person is holding the ear up. I'm using the arrow right now so you can see, holding the ear up and back, just like you do when you take the tympanic temperature, doing it in the ear. Holding it up and back opens up that ear canal so that we can look down inside of that towards that middle ear. This is where, when you start to look into the lens, which is right here, you're going to be able to see that tympanic membrane. And again, as we talked about earlier, it's kind of that pearly gray color. It has the areas that you might be able to see on there, that umbo, which is that circular disc in the middle of the ear, the handle coming off of the umbo, usually going out if you're looking at it towards the 1 o'clock position, and you should be able to see those two features usually pretty clearly on a person's ear. As the person gets older, you may not be able to see them quite as well. So when you're practicing in lab this week, those are the things that we want you to be looking for. Now, also, when you're looking at the ear, remember that sometimes it may be a little bit more difficult for you to see things if there's a lot of earwax built up in there. So if you have any difficulty, call us over and we'll help you try to get past that. Sometimes the eardrum is just completely blocked by earwax, and it may be impossible to actually see it very clearly, if at all, for some people. Again, one thing that we do as nurses is help to flush ears out, taking a syringe and a little cannula and squirting water into the ear, warm water into the ear, to help kind of get that water, shoot it behind that impacted earwax, and that'll help to kind of pop it out. Sometimes just the warm water can help melt it as well. Also, we can use ear drops. There's earwax softening drops that you can use. One brand is called Debrox. Some people just use mineral oil or a little other warm oil that they'll put in the ear, and that'll help them to soften the wax, or help to soften the wax as well. But it's really important for you to know that you have to be gentle with this. If the person's ear is hurting at all, it's advised that you don't look in that ear. Let the provider take care of it. Or at least if you're going to and they say that it hurts, make sure that you are very careful with it. When examining the ears, you will see in lab 2 there's a little cover that goes over the top of the tip of the otoscope to help protect, and it's more of an infection control process. Excuse me. And it's important for you to use the correct size of the tip, and we'll talk about that more in lab. So making sure that you select the correct size of the tip. And let's see, what else can I tell you about doing, examining the ear? Oh, when you're going from one ear to the next, if there is a possibility that the person has any type of an ear infection, or they're having, sorry about that, they're having any issues with pain in their ear, you want to make sure that you change the tip of the that you put onto the otoscope, because you don't want to pass infection from one side to the other. All right, just a couple other things with aging adults. They have pendulous earlobes, so they usually hang down a little bit more. They lose the elasticity. They lose that elasticity of the pinna or of the auricle. So lots of wrinkling, lots of dangling skin. That can be a normal aging adult variant. Again, we talked about coarse, wiry hairs being present in the canal, and as they get older, and you may see them actually sticking out at the opening. The eardrum may be a little bit whiter in color and more opaque, whereas it's a little bit duller and thicker, or excuse me, and it's a little bit duller and thicker than what we would see in a younger adult. So you may not be able to see those, the umbo and the manubrium as well, but you still might be able to pick those out. We talked about the high tone frequency loss and that presbycusis already, that hearing loss that occurs with aging. And you're going to be doing a test in lab this week called the whispered voice test, and you'll be standing behind your partner and whispering words, and hopefully they'll be able to hear it. But people who have this presbycusis often can't hear very well, especially when people are whispering. The aging adult will often tell you that they feel like people are mumbling. They feel isolated when they're in groups because they aren't able to hear what's going on, so they miss out on a lot of the conversation. Another key that I see with my parents is that the sound on the TV is turned way up as well. Okay, I think, yep, that's it. So 3 parts to this this week. Make sure you've watched all 3 of them, and I will see you in class.